All right, so we are having Toni Petrina over here with us. He just had a talk about the Aspire end-to-end flow, and this is actually quite interesting for me because Aspire is, I have a feeling that it's either hate or love relationship for many developers. So what's your take on this?
I think that .NET Aspire is trying to solve a very important problem for developers, which is how do you make local environment work for many different services? They can be just like one service in one database or Redis. And depending on how much you want to get involved with the setup, and if you like to do, setup of the local machine and installing these things, it can either get in your way or it can abstract the thing for you. So I think that's kind of like where the love hate comes from. People that either just want to delegate to it or people that want to be fully in control of where things are on their machine.
Yeah, and I have a feeling when I talk with my colleagues that especially with the senior ones that already have some experience with different tools, they don't really understand why Aspire has been brought to .NET environment at all. So do you know like what was the reason why such tool has been created?
I have my suspicions that basically the Docker Compose, which is the traditional way of composing multiple containerized services on a machine, does not scale very well for many scenarios. For example, when you want to run your application alongside with some dependent application, you're developing the primary one, right? So it should run in process, but the other one should be a container. That's hard to do with Docker Compose. I mean, you can do it, but you have to mount volumes and all that. So it solves this problem of starting multiple things in a machine. It makes actually getting on board with a new project quite easy. It's literally .NET Run, and you have your whole environment up and running, and it solves that particular problem. Additionally, it solves a secondary problem of passing arguments from one service to another. Connection strings setup, right? When you want to have two services that interact and have a database, you have to pass connection string from one to the other. You have to pass the URLs. Juggling ports, juggling connection strings, it becomes annoying after a while. So when you have 5 of these services or 10 of these services, this can grow, really complicated. And Docker Compose, while it's standard and it's YAML, which some people also, I think, hate, this technology solves this problem. It makes it strongly typed. So like Pulumi against Terraform, it brings the natural language that people use every day, which is C# in this case, for composing your infrastructure on your local machine, of course.
Good. It's really good that you brought the Terraform part, and at the very beginning you told us that it's suited for local development. But do you think it will be at some point, because it's production ready, let's say, for usage, but do you think it can be extended to actually be a tool to deploy, to manage all our deployments to different environments, so that it won't be only local, like David Fowler said at the very beginning, that it should be used only for the local development and to show us some dashboards, some metrics in an easy way. But I have a feeling that right now, also with the community tools, it's getting momentum into being a one tool for everything. So not only local development, local metrics, but also to pushing this throughout our different environments.
I mean, if you go with that route, if you want to deploy, that means deploying from your machine, which I think most enterprise or production-ready companies would not like. They would like to have CI/CD pipelines where things are deployed in a predictable manner, right? You don't want to deploy from your machine, like build the images and everything. However, there is something to be said about mirroring the production-grade architecture in your infrastructure, how things are set up, how many services connect to each other, and mirroring that on the local machine. Because right now we have a discrepancy between how it looks in your machine and how does it look in production. And then there is this question of, Microsoft is building it. Obviously, they're building it for Azure first. And currently, if you want to deploy somewhere, it's trivial to deploy to Azure, whatever we build in Aspire. AWS, I hear, is the second cloud in line to add native support in .NET Aspire. However, there is this intermediate format that they build. It's basically just a JSON file describing what is your infrastructure based on your app host. And in the future, I assume that there will be some tooling to be made that will at least compare what you have in your desired state. So if you look at your Aspire project, it's like what you want to have. and then they can look at Terraform and say, okay, so Terraform has this current state, and you can already see this reminds you of Kubernetes and Terraform. There is desired state, there's the actual state, and there might be some tooling that will at least tell you, okay, if you want to deploy this to staging environment and you just brought in a new Redis instance, I have to provision it. And the typical way of provisioning Redis in our company is with Terraform. So it might go and do that for you. It might actually create a PR in different repo. It might just spit out code for you to copy paste. But there has to be some kind of like check where it says, this is what you want to have, this is what actually there is, and this is the intermediate layer of translation of how do you get there, and that will still have to be controlled by, I assume, platform engineering or DevOps team, because they're the ones that actually control the layout of infrastructure in production and staging and other environments. It's really hard to translate all of this directly on developers' machine, but at least developers might know that, okay, I'm adding a new database, new Redis, new container, this is what needs to be done in other environments. And you can see that, and then you can, I don't know, comment with DevOps teams, how do we get this provision and similar. So there is a way for us to insert ourselves at the end of this manifest JSON chain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And what I'm actually seeing is that Aspire can lower the learning curve for young developers also to create a cloud-ready application. So they will have on the local machine, let's say, the feel and touch of what will it be looking like on the Azure, for example, or any other cloud platform. But do you think that Aspire is well suited for any team and any project?
I think many teams will benefit from it. You could argue that already today we have this problem, how do I run this thing on my computer? When you're onboarded into a new company, how many days, hours does it take you to actually just run the thing on your machine? It's perfectly suitable for greenfield technologies when you want to have just a small project with simple topology. I think it excels at that. For existing already products that you have running for years, there might be some process involved, and you can see that in my presentation when I try to retrofit an existing application. It can be done. There are some caveats, but there are still some things you can benefit from on your local machine. The only problem is that if some teams have already invested a lot in running this on a local environment, they might be looking at Aspire and asking, what will I gain from, again, scrapping all this investment and moving to it? That remains to be seen. But for companies that haven't solved this problem yet, or for greenfield development, I think it's a really good choice, because it really lowers the barrier, as you said, of getting people to understand how to build cloud-native, production-ready applications, which is what .NET Aspire aspires to be.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, this will be most likely just a prediction, but you probably you are more deep dived into Aspire than I did, and I have a feeling that Microsoft, in many cases, right now is throwing at us different applications, different tools, and there is always a question, because there are so many tools, and with the wider perspective, I don't believe yet that they will be able to maintain everything that they are releasing right now. So what do you think, what will be the future of Aspire? Because already we've got the community tools, and so probably it gained momentum at the very beginning with community welcomed this tool quite nicely. But do you think it will be in parallel? So one path will be the development from the core team in Microsoft, and the second one, the community. How would you see how it will go?
As long as they keep the interface format between how Aspire wants things to be and actually runs them, that will be then space for community to come in and create their own thing. So if they keep this interface very thin and this layer that's abstraction, if it's so simple, then people can contribute. It might just become a normal thing in .NET world. Like I said earlier, if you use Docker Compose, this is better than that in my opinion. So there is a great chance for this to become just a standard way of running things in the .NET world. Of course, Microsoft tries to heavily invest in Azure managed services that they're running inside Aspire, both with emulators and all that. But for other things, we already saw like the list of community integrations is quite huge at this point. They have different languages. They have Olama. They have Yarn, and all the other tools. So it is promising. I'm kind of hopeful because this really filled a gap in the .NET world that we solve with old tools like Docker Compose.
I would like to see actually at 1 year, because every year right now the .NET team is changing the templates for the new applications. So Blazor applications are changing, the APIs are changing. I just wait for the moment within one of the releases of .NET when the Aspire will be just out of the box within the template. So whenever you'll be creating any application, the Aspire will be there. I know that for Visual Studio it's quite easy to add this to even the existing project, but I believe that I'm more of a rider guy, and that's a bit trickier right now, but I think that it might be at some point the case that we'll see that Aspire will be just thrown into the template and you'll be using this out of the box. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, you can actually see that in the 9.3 release when they added support for Azure Functions. Now when you create Azure Function with the latest .NET version, they actually have a checkbox, use Aspire as a local orchestrator. So it's already like, if you want to do Azure Functions, you're pushed, or it's heavily suggested that you start. Yeah,
Microsoft style.
Yeah, just try putting app host in front of it, and then it's, I guess, easy to add additional services, database, Azure Storage, or similar things. We're gonna see this integration between .NET, Aspire, and Blazor, I think, in the future, evolving quite nicely together.
Yeah.
It's been only 2 years.
Exactly. That's still quite young and really developing really fast. So I like to see what will future brings. All right. Thank you very much, Toni. It was really nice having you here, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.